I didn't know my son thought of his teacher as his real father until I heard him ask, "Dad, will you always be here, even if I do something bad?" I'm 41. I live in Milwaukee. I work as an electrician for the city's utility company. I have a son, David, who is 12. His mother, Sarah, and I separated when he was 3. Not because of infidelity. Not because of cruelty. Just out of love. She moved to another neighborhood, but we made an agreement. I see him every weekend. I pay half the expenses. I come to all the parent-teacher conferences, performances, and games. I'm not just a father. I'm a dad. At least, that's what I thought. And then I heard this. It happened at school. I went to a meeting with a homeroom teacher. David had a bad semester. His grades had dropped. His history teacher was complaining about the attention. I wanted to understand what was going on. When I got to the classroom, the door was slightly ajar. Inside were David and Mr. Collins, his teacher from the Technical Creativity Club. The boy was sitting with his head down. His voice was trembling. "Dad," he said, "and you'll always be here, even if I do something bad?" I froze. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at him. At Mr. Collins. The latter put his hand on his shoulder. "Yes, David. I'm here. And I won't disappear, even if you make a mistake." I didn't go in right away. I stood outside the door, unable to breathe. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't understand. Is it just a word? Is it a choice? When I entered, Mr. Collins stood up. "Alex," he said, "thanks for coming. We were just talking about David." "Does he call you Dad?" I asked. He fell silent. He wasn't scared. He didn't blame himself. He just looked at me. Understandingly. "Yes," he said. "Sometimes." I don't correct him. Not because I want to replace you, but because it's his way of saying, "You're not abandoning me." "But I'm his father," I said. "I paid for it. I came. I've been with him since he was born." "I know," he said, "and that's important. But he comes to me after school. He cries when he's having a hard time. He asks if he's stupid. And when he says Dad, he's not talking about biology. He's talking about who won't let go." I couldn't answer. David ran over. "Dad," he said, "did you hear what Mr. Collins said?" "Yes," I said. "I'm here too. And I'm not going anywhere." He smiled, but his eyes said, "But you go often." I got home. Sarah called. "He talks about Mr. Collins as his dad," she said. "Did you know?" "Yes," I said. "And I don't know what to do." "I'm not stopping," she said. "Not because I want him to be his dad, but because he's the one who's there. Every day. When you're at work. When he cries. When he needs someone. But I'm their father." "Yes," she said. "But a father is not just blood. It's a presence. And he is present." I hung up the phone. And I sat looking out the window. And I thought, can I be a father if my son gives this word to another man? And I didn't know the answer. I couldn't leave it like this. Not because I was afraid of losing my son, but because I was afraid that he had already lost me. I called the school psychologist, Dr. Emily Wong. She worked with teenagers who were experiencing anxiety, self-esteem issues, and difficult relationships with their parents. I explained who I was and asked to meet, not as a blaming parent, but as someone who wanted to understand. "Come in," she said, "and let's talk." I arrived the next day. The office was bright, with pictures of the students on the walls, a rug where the children had sat during sessions. Dr. Wong was calm, confident, with that look that said, "I've seen more than you think." "Do you know that my son calls his teacher Dad?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "And this isn't the first time. For many children, the word dad isn't about biology. It's about safety, about someone who doesn't disappear. But I don't disappear. I work to provide for him. I come every weekend. He understands that," she said. But understanding is not the same as feeling. For him, Dad is who he is. Every day, when he fails a test, when he gets teased, when he's insecure. And Mr. Collins? He's a stable figure, she said. He's always there. He listens. He doesn't disappear for weeks. And when David calls him Dad, he doesn't say, "You're my biological father." He says, "You're my rock." And me? "You are his story," she said. "His beginning." But he can't feel you as here when you're not physically there. And when someone else fills that space, he gives him the word that expresses the deepest. "You are the one who doesn't abandon me." I fell silent. Not because I didn't believe, but because I did. And it hurt. And what should I do? "Don't blame him," she said. "Don't blame the teacher. And try to be closer. Not physically, that's hard. But emotionally. Talk to him about what he's feeling. Ask, Who helps you when you're having a hard time? Not to blame, but to understand. And say, I'm here, even when I'm not there. I came home. David was waiting. We sat on the porch. Are you mad at me? He asked. No, I said. But I want to know why you call Mr. Collins Dad. He fell silent. Not scared, but tired. Because he's always there, he said. When I cry, when I'm teased, when I don't understand my homework. And you come, and then you disappear again. I work to have money for you, I said. For school, for sneakers, for travel. I know, he said, but money doesn't buy hugs. I couldn't speak. I just hugged him, very tightly. I don't want you to lose me, I said. I'm your dad, and I love you. I know, he said, but sometimes I need someone to be here. I couldn't wait any longer. Not because I was angry, but because I had a right to know, is he consciously occupying the place that belongs to me? I called Mr. Collins. Not through the school. Personally. He didn't answer right away. He asked for a time. He agreed to meet. In a park, not far from the school. Not in the office. Not in front of the children. Just the two of us. He came in jeans and a light, coffee in his hand. He looked at me. Not with a challenge, but with caution. Thank you for coming, he said. I understand why you want to talk. I didn't come to accuse, I said. But I came to know, are you consciously allowing him to call you Dad? Yes, he said. But not because I want to replace you, but because I don't correct when someone calls me the one they need. But he's my son. Yes, he said. I never forgot that. The first time he said that word, I said, do you mean your father? He said, no, you're my father now. And I didn't say, no, I'm not your father. Because for him, it wasn't about biology. It was about finding someone who wouldn't disappear. But I don't disappear. I work to provide for him. I know, he said. And that's important. But to a 12-year-old, providence isn't money. It's someone who sits next to him when he can't sleep. Someone who hugs him when he cries. Someone who says, everything's going to be okay. Not on the phone, but in the room. I fell silent. Not because he was right, but because he was. He comes to me after school, he continued. Not every day, but often. He talks about you. How you make burgers together. How you watch football. How you laugh. And when he says, Dad, he doesn't erase you from his life. He just gives me a word that says, you are my support now. What if I change? What if I know how to work in the city? Then he might stop calling me that, he said. Or not. But that will be his choice. Not mine. I don't fight for that word. I just don't push him away when he needs it. But do you understand how painful it is? What about hearing your son give another man his most sacred word? Yes, he said. And I wouldn't allow myself to do that if you were there. But you are at work, 200 miles away. And he is here. And he cries. And he asks, does anyone love me when Dad is far away? I say, yes. And I'm here. I sat there, wondering if he was the enemy. Or if he was the one who saved my son from loneliness when I couldn't. I don't want him to lose me. I said, I'm your dad. I love you. I know, he said. But sometimes I need someone to be here. And in that moment, I realized I hadn't lost him. I just hadn't been close enough. And now I had a choice. Whether to continue living on schedule or change it at his expense. I couldn't forget his words. But sometimes I need someone to be here. They echoed in my head like a reminder. You were away, and he was alone. I didn't want to eavesdrop. But when I arrived the next weekend, David had forgotten his diary in his backpack. Not the school one, but the personal one, the one with the black cover I'd given him for his birthday. I couldn't open it, but I couldn't leave it. And when he went to take a shower, I opened it. On the first page was the date, February 5th, before he'd even started calling Mr. Collins Dad. Today, Dad left again. He said, I'll be back in 2 weeks. But I'd forgotten how he hugged. And I don't cry because he says, you're big now. But sometimes I want to be little, so that he would hug me, even if I cried. Next entry is a week later. Mr. Collins stayed after school. We were putting together the robot. He said, you're smart, and you're important. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel stupid. I asked, will you always be here? He said, yes. And I thought, maybe he's my dad? Because my dad always disappears. I sat there and couldn't breathe. Another entry is from a while ago. Dad came back. He hugged me. And I remembered what it was like to have a dad. But he'll leave again. And then I'll be alone again. So I'll say to Mr. Collins, Dad, because he doesn't disappear. But I don't want my real dad to think I don't love him. I do, even when he's far away. And the last one was yesterday. I know the difference. Mr. Collins is my dad when my dad's not around. But my dad is my dad because he always comes back. And that's more important. I closed my diary. I couldn't figure out. Is this a lie? Is this love? Is this a way to survive being abandoned? An hour later, he came out of the bathroom. Have you seen my diary? Yes, I said. I didn't want to read it, but I did. He fell silent. He wasn't scared. He wasn't accusing. He just looked at me. What? I didn't know it was so hard for you, I said. That you feel alone. I don't want you to feel guilty, he said. Mr. Collins helps me, but you're my dad, and I wait for you, even when you're far away. And why do you call him Dad? Because it is convenient, he said. If I say, Mr. Collins, I am scared, he can say, I am not your father. But if I say, Daddy, I am scared, he hugs me. And I don't feel alone. But you haven't lost me, I said. I always come back. Yes, he said. But you are not always here. And I need someone to be there. And he is. I hugged him, very tightly. And I said, I will change. I'll find a job here. Not now, but soon. To be closer. So that you don't have to look for a dad in another man. But I'm not looking, he said. I've just learned to survive until you come back. And in that moment I realized. He hadn't lost me. He'd just learned to live without me. To survive. And now I had to decide whether to continue living on a schedule or change it for his sake. 2 months passed. I didn't know how to change. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know where to start. I worked remotely to provide. But now I understood provision is not about money. It's about presence. And then one evening, as we sat on the porch, watching the moon rise, I said, I found a job here, at the local electric utility. Not very well paid, but I'll be able to be home every night. He looked at me, not happy, not smiling. He simply said, Why? Because I don't want you to learn to survive without me. I said, I want you to be able to wait for me and know that I will be back, that I won't disappear, that I am here. But you always said you worked for me. Yes, I said, but I was wrong. I thought money was love, but it was time, and I lost it, and you were learning to live without me. He paused. Then he said, I didn't want you to feel guilty. I don't feel guilty, I said. I understand, and it's harder, because now I see how you've become stronger, because of my absence. But I don't want you to be strong because of lack. I want you to be strong because you know you're not alone. He started crying, not quietly, not out of guilt, like someone who hasn't said anything for a long time, and finally does. I was afraid you wouldn't come back, he said. Not physically, and because maybe you'll be better off without me, that you'll find a new family, that you'll forget. Never, I said. You're my son, and I'll always come back, even if I've been away. And now I won't be away anymore. A week later, I invited Mr. Collins to dinner, not as an enemy, as someone who helped my son survive my absence. Thank you for being there for him, I said. I don't want him to lose you, but I want him to know that I'm here too, even when I'm not here. He knows that, he said, and he loves you. But love is not a finite resource. He can have too many calls, Dad. One for blood, the other for support, and maybe for the future. And in that moment I realized, it's not about loss. It's about how sometimes family isn't just blood. It's about the ones who choose to stay. A month later, the four of us, me, David, Mr. Collins, and Sarah, got together for a picnic in the park. No drama, no stress, just sunshine, coffee, laughter. When David ran off to play, Sarah said, You've changed. Yes, I said. Not because someone made you, but because I realized that being a father isn't just about paying. It's about being heard. And you. I'm here, I said. Not always physically, but emotionally, yes. And that's probably enough. It was getting late when we drove home. David was in the back seat. I looked at him in the mirror. Dad, he said, and you'll always be there, even if I do something bad? Yes, I said. Even then. Especially then. Because a dad is not someone who leaves. He's someone who stays. He smiled. And in that moment I realized, this is not the end. This is the beginning of being not just a father, but a dad, every day. Not by one word, but by choice. And I decided, I'm not going to wait for the weekend anymore. I'm going to be there. Even when I'm just silent. Even when I'm listening. Even when he calls someone dad. Because I know. He knows who I am.